Welcome to today's Facebook Live. Really excited about today because we have a lot of garments to show you. I was just floored by how many garments we have made up in this one particular fabric, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So today is a little bit more of a fashion show, and you're going to see great fabrics made up in lots of different ways in wonderful colors. But first, I want to announce a couple of things. First of all, I just purchased the brand new Bonanza big mega serger cover stitch combo machine, and so I realized that I have a few machines that I probably don't really need. In fact, I have 5 pieces of equipment now that will do a cover stitch, and that's probably more than a normal person would need. So I have some machines for sale that I am going to offer up at good prices. You know, I haven't used any of these machines very much, so even though they're used, they're certainly not overused by any means. So what I have is, I have a Baby Lock Ovation, which is not currently the top of the line overlock and cover stitch machine, but it used to be. It's now this, I think, the second tier down. I have that one for sale. I have a Janome standalone cover stitch machine, a 1000 Cover Pro machine, and I have 2 Bonanza standalone cover stitch machines, one a little older than the other. If by some chance you're interested in one of these pieces of equipment, why don't you give me a shout, either call me or email me, and we can talk about the details and the pricing and so forth. My email is linda@sewingworkshop.com. So give me a call if you're interested. It's a great time to purchase something for yourself, for your own Christmas present. You know, sometimes we have to do that if we want exactly what we want. All right. Some of you know that I have for years been an interior designer. I graduated with that degree from Kansas State University many, many years ago and practiced the art of interior design for about 40 years or so. And because I'm a member of ASID, the American Society of Interior Designers, still to this day, I get a magazine called Interior Design. Anyone can buy this magazine on a newsstand at someplace like Barnes & Noble, but I do get it in my mailbox. And I still love looking through it. Even though I'm not specifying furniture and finishes anymore for the commercial businesses that I used to do that for, I do still love to look at what's new in the world of interior design. I think it's a very, very avant-garde sort of industry. Things are always evolving and changing, and really, I think, sort of states what's going on in the practice of art and color and lifestyle. So this month, they had an article called At First Blush. And a couple of pages into it, I see that we have this color scheme that is pink tones and sort of salmon and camel colors. And I realize that I get a lot of my color cues or color inspirations from looking at interiors rather than fashion magazines. So it reminded me of something that I had done a few years ago for a commercial client here in Topeka, Kansas. I did a big commercial project for a security benefit group, a massive big building, and one of the things that I commissioned was a piece of artwork by a local Kansas artist by the name of Robert Russell. And this was a 100-foot painting that was going to go above a bank of windows and doors into a cafeteria. And Mr. Russell did a mock-up for me out of cardboard and paper and paint and collage. And this was the mock-up, which I kept. I'm fascinated by this. I keep this in my sewing room. So if you can imagine this as a 100-foot painting that's still there to this day. But the colors really grabbed me and reminded me that we have some of these blush colors available. So over the weekend, I made this garment behind me, which I'm going to talk about. And you can see that I've added some bands that kind of reminded me of this mock-up of this piece of art. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Excuse me just a second, my piece of paper fell on the floor. I also want to tell you about a new fabric that just came in that's really interesting. I know it's black and you may not be able to see it super well, but this is just a little piece of it. It is a black on black, so it has some shine and dull parts, matte finishes, but it's in a little grid. So I decided that I was going to make a vest, something like this. This is the Quincy jacket, simply without the sleeves. That's all. And this was made a couple of years ago. I made it in sort of a faux leather affair, but I want a black vest for this season. My black vest of many years ago is finally shot and I need a new one, so I'm going to make a new one. So I decided to take that fabric plus a black knit, jersey knit, and back it so that I have a little softer feel on the inside. And then I've been experimenting with a few little stitches, using the grid as my template to do some stitches. Here I started out with white, sort of this sashiko type idea of using the white on a darker color. Here I've added some color. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this, but hopefully down the line you'll see my Quincy vest. And if you're interested in this brand new fabric that we just got in, here's the SKU number for it. It is on the website, so check it out because it's a really interesting fabric. And we don't have a ton of it, so hopefully after I make it, somebody will get inspired and want to do something similar or go off on your own and do something totally different. All right, let's talk about a particular fabric. I realized yesterday that we've been selling this very interesting fabric for about 7 years, and that's pretty unusual in the fabric game. Usually a fabric kind of comes and goes, it's sort of trendy, but this particular fabric has hung on for a long time. And it is what we are calling English boucle, and it is made up of rayon, 60% rayon, and 40% wool. It has the appearance of a boiled wool, except it's much lighter weight and drapier, and it's already sort of boiled for you. You don't have to throw it in the washing machine and shrink it or felt it like you do certain other kinds of fabrics to get a true felted or boiled wool. I have it on. I have on the Zona jacket that has a little bit of a variation to it. I started to button this morning and realized, oh no, this was made to be offset like this. I was trying to button it up and then couldn't figure out why the collar wasn't working for me. But this is a very comfortable fabric, and you can see that it's very drapey. And because it's a knit, then it doesn't ravel, which means that you can use raw edges and you can do raw edge overlapping seams. So it's like you're sculpting a garment. You can create shape. It steams really beautifully, so you can do these overlapping seams either straight or on curves to insert sleeves or princess lines or something like that. So this is a really, really easy fabric to sew, and the results are incredible. This is a fabric that you still see in ready-to-wear, which is why I know that the trend hasn't left us yet. People like Eileen Fisher, Oska out of Germany, they are using fabrics just like this, and you and I as sewers can get that look for a lot less money. So that's the fabric I'm going to be talking about today, and I wanted to show you all of the different garments that we've made up in this fabric. So start with the Zona jacket. I have it on. Now, yesterday I decided to put on a white shirt. Well, I now know what I'm missing in my wardrobe. I do not have a white t-shirt in my closet. So I think I'm going to be making one over the weekend. So this is the closest that I could come to a white t-shirt. This happens to be the ET. It's actually in a natural white, and I hand-stitched the entire garment together while sitting in front of the television, probably watching the World Series. But let's start trying some things on. You saw this last week, I think. Some week. I sort of lose track of my Tuesdays. This is the pearl jacket. Has this wonderful drapey front. But again, all raw edges. Well, not all raw edges. The raw edges on the sleeve, raw edges on the bottom, overlapping seams. The front usually has a drawstring, and so there is a casing here in case I wanted to put a drawstring in it, but in this case I don't really want to. So this is the pearl. It's part of the pearl and opal pattern, so you get 2 garments in one pattern. I don't think I'm going to put this one on. Well, why not? You know, I've got it all buttoned up, but you can watch me unbutton it. I didn't know if I wanted to waste your time unbuttoning the mountain top. This is an older pattern that we have revived again and put out as a download pattern only. Sometimes that's what we do when a pattern goes away for a while. We discontinue patterns fairly routinely, but this one can be made either as a pullover or as a jacket, either one. But I love this funnel neck. This has a very unique construction to the collar, and it is somewhat off-center, this particular inset of the cowl, in a gorgeous plum color. We have the chateau coat, probably our simplest garment to make. Would you say that's true, Erin? It's pretty simple. It has a front piece and a back piece and a back facing. And depending on what fabric you make it in, you can use raw edges, or we have a technique in the pattern for binding the edges using some knit, but it doesn't have any sort of a set-in sleeve. But this is like a cape, a throw, a wrap. It's just one of those garments that you throw on, you're heading out the door quickly, or, of course, it's a statement jacket as well. I got an email from our favorite store in Kansas City called Asiatica. If you're ever in Kansas City, you must stop at Asiatica. They have incredible garments made out of old kimono, but they have other more contemporary garments as well made out of modern fabrics. And today they were featuring a coat sort of like this. And so I thought, well, you know, better get this out. It reminded me to dig this one out. The pocket is hidden, and it has just a little slit opening for the pocket. And the pocket is loose on the inside. Or we have a pattern also for an applied pocket. Notice what I put this with. This is the Noto tee, and I love this color combination of the gold and the magenta and the red. A little bit unexpected. This is a great color combination. My favorite color of green with this blueberry blue. I think everyone can wear this. A lot of people don't care for this color, think they can't wear it, but if you put it with your color underneath, then I would think that it would be able to happen for you. That happens to be the Noto tee as well. I was so confident 2021. So this is the other part of the pearl and opal pattern. This is the opal jacket. I've really gotten to like this garment more this year. For some reason, when we first brought it out, I was making the pearl, I wasn't making the opal, and then all of a sudden I took a new look at it and thought, this is an interesting garment. First of all, it has darts here that come out of the side seam, and the darts are open here at the front, and that's what creates this drape. It has a little placket for 3 buttons. And it has what looks like a set-in sleeve. But back here, and I've forgotten what happens here, but there's a back panel that forms the sleeve. Anyway, it's not construction as usual, and it's very, whoops, the buttonholes, I can tell that Kathy Davis made this garment. I tease her about this all the time. Her buttonholes are always too big, and so the buttons never stay buttoned. Kathy, are you listening? Anyway, great opal jacket. When I did a Craftsy class a couple of years ago, I made this garment. And actually it was a class called Underneath It All, which is still available through Craftsy. Even though Craftsy has been sold to a company in Minneapolis, you can still get the class called Underneath It All. And that class is all about interfacing, underlinings, interlinings, linings, and whatever. And I talk about how to line this particular jacket. So this is the Mix-It shirt, but the shirt can be made as a jacket, lined or unlined. Very simple, very classic. Has that Chanel jacket look to it if you want to do something novelty, woven, interesting, tweedy fabric. This is a great, I call it little jacket because it's very, very simple to make. And I love a splash of lining. I have a lot of great silks in my stash left over from the 80s when I was wearing business suits a little bit more, and I had the beautiful blouse with the bow with the jacket over it. Well, all those fabrics still exist. Well, I don't make those kinds of blouses so much anymore, but I certainly love to use them as linings. So don't forget about that. And this is worn over the Mix-It top, which we talked about last week, this time in a silk charmeuse Pucci print. We have the Tremont jacket. Here's another interesting color scheme. The more classic sort of indigo blue, but now kick it with that yellow-green knit. And this is an Ann's tank under the Tremont jacket. Now sometimes you may want to use raw edges, but you want to reinforce the edge a little bit. So there's actually, where there would normally be a turn back or a facing attached, now there are two layers of fabric here, but this is raw edged. And what I do sometimes is I will actually fold the fabric under and edge stitch it, and then cut off the fold. And it looks like I have cut two pieces of fabric perfectly and matched them at the edges perfectly. But in fact, I've sewn them together first and then cut off the fold. And this has a, quote, add-on cuff. Normally this cuff is turned back, but this has a band now so that it has just a teeny bit of a detail. I think of all the patterns that we have in the line, this is the one that fits the most people without any to-do about fitting, and it looks great on everyone. I don't think I've ever seen a single person put this on when they've come to our workshops or walk into our shop, or I've been out on the road, who's tried this on, who hasn't said, oh, I can wear that. This looks great. So don't forget the Tremont jacket. This button is placed where the pattern says, but of course you can leave it off, or you can move this button or have multiple buttons. I recommend that you make the jacket and then you decide where to put the button after it's all said and done, because it might vary on everybody. I'm not going to try this one on because I don't want to put it over my head. I don't want to mess up my hair. So this is the Helix top, also in the English boucle. So there are diagonal seams here, and of course here and here. So this is the garment that has the swirl design to it. Now instead of putting a binding where it's wrapped on the edge, this is a second layer, a little strip of this boucle that's just been laid underneath and then stitched twice. So this is raw edged here. But it's a nice, nice detail. So this looks like kind of a sweatshirt, very casual, but really beautiful and elegant, I think, in this fabric as well. Another color scheme that I think is interesting, this brown color over the more magenta and, what do you call this color? Fuchsia, magenta with brown. This is the Odette top. Under, see what size. tiny bit big for me, but maybe not, I don't know. I can wear all kinds of sizes. I can wear smalls, I can wear mediums, I can wear larges. I've even had on, I can wear an extra large or XXL Tremont jacket and it still looks great. All of which, of course, depends on the fabric. And when you roll up your sleeves, it gives you that jauntier look. You don't want to look unjaunty for sure. So this is the Chicago jacket. This is the that dives into a seam and another seam here and built-in pockets, which are not loose on the inside of the garment, which I like sometimes. Again, raw edged. Now, even though I talk about raw edges, doesn't mean we don't sew a little something. I leave them raw, but I will sometimes do 1 or 2 rows of stitches next to the edge. But again, I'm going to do the stitching and then I'm going to trim it next to the stitching instead of trying to stitch perfectly 1/8 of an inch in from the raw edge. I'm going to stitch I leave the seam allowances or hem allowances on the edges, stitch on that line, and then trim off a 1/2 inch or 5/8 or whatever it might be. Excuse me. So, love this color combination. This is our Brando jacket. And again, it's lined. And it's in the Brando jacket pattern. We have this technique of how to do this particular corner all by the sewing machine. So there's no hand stitching, which is what you usually have to do in a lining technique. So just remember that the Brando has that technique to it. You don't have to line the Brando. I've made a couple of them that are not lined, but it does look nice lined and it feels terrific. So this is more conventional sewing. This is the same fabric, the same boucle, but like the pattern. We have finished edges with facings, hems for the sleeve and the bottom. The sleeves are set in. There's nothing overlapping and the raw edged about this garment at all. So you don't have to do the raw edge technique if it's not your thing. And just remember that this is just a great fabric to sew and wear. It lasts forever. I like this. It's inserted in the front seam and the surface of the garment. The left side versus the right side, they're different. And then another pattern that was very popular, and we discontinued it, and then we brought it out again as a download. So this is the Era jacket. It's a short jacket that has some interesting swing aspects to it, where you see the side seams kind of split. It has cuffs that are split. You can put a button where the split ends. Roll up the sleeves if you want to. Those of you who know me know I roll up all my sleeves. I don't know what that is. Maybe I used to get my garments in my food. I'm not sure. Let's see. Am I all put together here? Sort of, kind of. So this has really deep miters right here, which make a fun detail. But this is a great little jacket. You could make this in fleece, French terry, ponte knit, the boucle, some really fancy tapestry or glittery thing for the holiday. This has a lot of potential for a lot of different fabrics.
Red wool.
And wool.
That red wool.
Oh, the red wool that we talked about with the felted garments a couple, 3 weeks ago, that red textured wool. Oh yeah, that would be incredible. Put that over your black pants and black little sequin tank for the holidays and open your Christmas presents. All right. All right, couple more. We have the flat iron. Here are my 2 garments that are inspired by the color scheme of the art piece that I did for security benefit. So this is the flat iron over the Noto tee in a beautiful pink jersey. There's nothing more refreshing than winter white in the winter. We used to have white when we had like 2 sales a year in retail. You had the January white sale and then probably some end of summer sale, and that was about it. Now everything's on sale all the time. But I love this jacket. I mean, this sits on your body just perfectly. It doesn't ride back. You're not shifting around in it. I feel quite chic in this. This has the applied pockets, so the seam allowances have been removed from the edges of the pockets, and it's been stitched down twice, right on the edge, and then about 1/4 of an inch away from that. And yet the top of the pocket is a more traditional hem, turned down and top stitched, so the top of the pocket is not raw edged. So there's a little bit of a combination going on here, but love this. I'm hoping that I look really good. I can't see myself, but I'm thinking this is kind of one of my colors. So then the one that I made over the weekend, and actually I was surprised at how fast I made this. This is the Quincy jacket. This is a download pattern. It has these seams that are like princess seams, but they're not super curved. I love this blush color. I spent more time thinking about what to do with the center front, including in my dreams and including my shower time. Some of my best ideas come in the morning when I'm showering. But these are just pieces of silk, scraps of silk that I've had in a bundle. I sort them, well, I used to sort them by colors. I don't really sort anything anymore, it seems. I'm too busy. But they were kind of already together in a little pile of peachy, white, and camel. So I decided, rather than putting this with black, which seemed to be the most common thing to do or the most natural thing to do, that I would put this with a more camel kind of color. So these are piece sections of silk that have actually been sewn on to the front edge, turned, and then I hand slip stitched. Not everybody's into handwork, but I actually really love handwork and I love to do slip stitching. So I sat by the TV and did my slip stitching. So the discussion in the office is whether this needs buttons or not. So let me know. I don't know. I'm thinking not, but I'm also thinking that it would be nice to have some nice simple pearl buttons as well. But I like the way this splays out, and you can see the same kind of reverse application of the silk on the collar. But this is a really cool design. This is the Quincy jacket. It's been lengthened. I still sewed the little tuck in the side like we normally do in the Quincy, and I just simply left off the zipper. I used the center front. I left the seam allowance that was there, and I simply applied these to that front so it extends over a little bit by, I think, about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, whatever the width of this is. So it took, once I had it cut out, I cut it out on Saturday. It took about an hour to cut it out. And on Sunday, I started in. I played tennis in the morning, and I got home about 1:30. And by 4 o'clock, I was done, until I realized I needed to rip out a couple of things, and then I was another hour ripping out and putting in and whatever. But you know, the ripper is my friend. I actually love to rip, so it's not a real big deal. So we have this really, really wonderful fabric that I think would make great pants with this color. I've never seen a fabric quite like this. It has the look of wool crepe, and it is wool crepe, but it has a lot of lycra in it. So this would make fantastic pants. This would make the mimosa pants, the Chesney pants, all of our pants, the Madrid pants, anything. I can't think of a single pants pattern that we have that this wouldn't be fantastic on. So check this out. This is a very unusual piece. And this is from a designer in LA. So we won't be getting more of this. Once this is gone, it's gone. But in all the years I've been selling wool crepe, I've never seen a wool crepe that feels this great, is this soft, and has this much lycra in it. Because normally wool crepe doesn't have any lycra in it whatsoever. So now I'm going to show you all of the colors. Well, no, wait, before I do that, I want to show you a technique. Let's do technique first. So let's talk about this overlapping seam technique. All right. So to do a raw edge overlapping seam, one edge is going to be removed, and one edge of a seam allowance is going to be removed, and one seam allowance is going to remain. So you're going to have an overlapping seam and an underlapping seam. So let's assume that on this overlapping piece, the seam allowance has been cut away. I've used a straight edge and a rotary cutter so that I have a very, very nice clean edge. On the underlapping side, I have drawn the 5/8 inch seam allowance. Now I use a chalk marker or chalkener. I've used a magic marker here. Do not do that. But I was just hoping you could see it. Now you want to use some fusee web. We talk about fusee web all the time. It is our #1 notion that we sell, use, can't get enough of. It comes from Japan. It has a paper-covered line of glue. So I have taken this strip of fusee web that's about 3/8 of an inch wide, and I have fused it on. So my iron is over the paper, and I am within the seam allowance. I'm on the inside of the seam allowance. Then I'm going to remove the paper, and now all I have to do is place the corresponding seam next to my marked line, and I'm going to fuse that down. I don't have to use pins, clips, anything. I'm ready to go to the sewing machine. Once it's fused down, it'll stay there. Not for the length of the garment. You have to sew it. This is not a permanent fuse. But just think of fusee web not as a tape. A lot of people get this confused. It is a line of glue. It's very sheer. It doesn't change the character of the fabric. The fabric still stays drapey. So we love this product. There's no other product like it on the market. So this is a seam that I've sewn. Now I know you probably can't see the stitches, but I have sewn that using a presser foot. The first line of stitches is sewn about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and I use this presser foot that has a guide bar on it so that I can put this little bar up next to the raw edge of the seam and move my needle position left so that I can stitch an even distance from that raw edge. Then I'm going to use another foot. In Bernina language, by the way, this is a number 10. I'm sure other brands have equal types of presser feet. And they're usually an extra accessory. They don't come with your machine unless you can talk your dealer into just kind of throwing it in when you buy a high-end machine. Dealers hate it when I say that. Now I'm going to use a 1/4 inch foot. This is called a patchwork foot, number 37, again Bernina. And I'm going to be able to line this up so that the edge of the presser foot is next to this first row of stitching, and I'm going to be able to stitch an even 1/4 of an inch away from my first stitching. So this looks like a flat felled seam. There is another foot that Bernina has that's a number 57 that has the blade on it, the guide bar. But I find the one that does not have the guide bar better for this particular application. But if you have the 57, it'll probably work just fine. So once you have the 2 rows of stitching done, then you have the back side, and you actually ultimately want the back side to look like the front side, because in this sense, these garments can be reversible. So I found that I like these scissors the best for trimming. These are the Karen K. Boucle scissors. I have every scissor known to man, but this particular scissor is my favorite. And notice how I am putting this pretty much on the side, flat, and I'm coming along here and just trimming the excess seam allowance away so that now my reverse side will look like the front side. I tried all kinds of scissors, short scissors, long bladed scissors, and I found that these just have the right feel for gripping this fabric. Every scissor has its own little thing. So there you go, Karen K. Buckley scissors. That's how you do that seam. Now we have a tutorial called Raw Edge Construction. And the tutorial is actually all about how to make this garment, the opal top or jacket. So it's start to finish how to make this jacket. But even if you're not making this jacket, the tutorial I think would be useful because it'll show you how to do darts, how to set in a sleeve, how to do these overlapping seams, and all of the details that we use when we're working with this fabric. So now let's look at all the fabric colors that we have. We have, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 colors, or 10 or 11 colors of this. We'll start. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this? All right, block. We have the white that is this jacket, the flat iron jacket. We have the blush color that I have on. We have the plum color that I used to make the Fuji mountain top. We have the raspberry that was used to make the pearl. We have the teal blue, a little bit different blue now that I look at this in the light, but very similar. This is the Tremont jacket. We have the rusty orange, again a little different colorway perhaps. We have this fantastic, I don't know what you call this color, deep moss green. Has a sort of brown overtone to it, but there's definitely a green cast. I didn't know that until I hung it here with these other colors. I love the gold and the orange together, and I love all three of these together, which brings up the whole idea of color blocking. So for instance, on the helix top, you could do this in two colors. You could do it in the black and white. You could do it in any of these colors together. So think about that, because it really makes an interesting design when you're using two colors with the helix top. And we have this really unique wisteria color. I am into this color. I don't know that I can wear it. I don't know. I might have to try. I'm getting a nod from the audience, Aaron, the audience. I love this color. And this and the camel and the black are popular right now. We're seeing these with colors that are a little bit unexpected. So think about this one as well. So all of these fabrics, all 11 colors, are on sale this week at 20% off. The Raw Edge Construction tutorial is on sale. The Karen K. Buckley scissors are on sale. And all of the patterns that I showed are on sale. I've lost track of how many that is. But the Brando, Chicago, Tremont, Era, Chateau, Fuji, Pearl and Opal, Helix, and Mix It, and Quincy are all on sale this week.
Flat iron, did you say flat iron?
And flat iron. I don't think I said flat iron. So that's a lot of options for you to get ready for your holiday sewing. So, do we have any questions?
Yes. Could you go through and just quickly hold up each garment and say what the pattern is again?
I can do that. I'm going to show what each pattern is. This is the Mix It shirt, part of the Mix It pattern that has the shirt, the top, and the tank in it. We have the Pearl and Opal. Both of these are in the same pattern, Pearl and Opal. Have the helix top. Also comes with great pants. We make our helix pants in Ponte knits. Love them. They're my favorite skinny pant. And this is the Fuji Mountain top. The Chateau coat. Era jacket. Sleeve out here a little bit. Era jacket. Tremont jacket. Chicago jacket. And Brando jacket. And Flatiron jacket. And Quincy jacket. Okay.
Okay, what is the content again, and how much stretch does it have?
It is 60% rayon, 40% wool. It has stretch because it's a knit, but that is not a factor that I use in determining what I'm going to make with this. I treat this as if it has no stretch. It does happen to have a bit of stretch, but there's no spandex in it, and so that means the recovery is suspect. I wouldn't make a garment out of this that's going to stretch and you expect it to come back.
Is it scratchy?
Is it scratchy? Well, I'm the queen of I hate scratch. I'm feeling a little bit, but it's not that bad.
The tee you have on, is it Alabama Shannon style, method, pattern? What's the pattern?
The pattern, the t-shirt that I have on is the ET, which is our pattern. It's a download t-shirt. I have used the Alabama Shannon method of hand-sewn seams on the outside and some stenciled sections that I have hand-sewn together. And I've used their method of applying a binding by hand as well, using the Cretan stitch. So it is Alabama Shannon style in terms of the sewing, but it's our pattern, the ET.
Okay. So when you did the overlap in seams, you were trimming from the right or the wrong side?
I'm trimming on the wrong side. Okay. I've already pre-trimmed the piece that will be shown on the right side. That's done with the rotary cutter first, before you lay it on the top. And that cut line is on the marked line, and so you're trimming the excess from the wrong side.
Have you ever tried using a double needle?
Have I ever tried using a double needle? No, that wouldn't be wide enough for me. I'm not a big fan of double needles either because of what shows up on the back. I don't care for the stitch on the back of a twin needle. So no, I have not tried that. You can. I don't know why you couldn't, but it's a little heavy. There's a little bit too much thread going on to connect the two lines of stitching, I think, and that wouldn't look like a flat felt seam on both sides.
Could you make the detour jacket with the boucle?
Could you make the detour jacket with the boucle? Absolutely. That'd be a fabulous idea. Yes. In fact, it's a wonderful idea.
What size is the Brando jacket?
What size is the Brando jacket? That is an extra small.
Okay. You have so many clothes. How do you choose what to pack when you travel?
I have so many clothes. What do I choose to pack when I travel? Well, that is a good question. My travel, it depends on my travel. If I am traveling to teach, that's a whole other story than if I'm traveling for pleasure. When I'm traveling to teach, I'm dragging 2 huge suitcases with every sample of every garment that we have. But if I'm traveling for pleasure, then, oh my gosh, how do I decide what to wear? I have no idea. It's the mood of the moment. I do try to pack a little bit more simply, I suppose, with maybe 1 jacket and 2 or 3 tops. When I went on the London tour, I guess that would be more specific. I did a Facebook Live at the time, I think, or some sort of video about what I packed. I packed my Picasso pants, one pair of jeans, it could be the getaway jeans, and then I packed one jacket, which was the Chicago jacket, and 2 or 3 t-shirts, the ET, the swing tee, the Odette top, and that's pretty much of a good winter-ish travel wardrobe. When I go to Chateau Dumas in the summertime, I'm definitely taking my linen Picasso pants because they're airy and it can be warm over there. I'm taking a couple of Odette t-shirts, a swing tee, again just t-shirts and a bottom. In bright colors, summery colors, because France, the beautiful vista view of Chateau Dumas is incredible with the sunflowers and the beautiful greenery and the rolling hills and the old stone, and so I kind of get into those colors of where I'm going.
The Zona, you want to mention that there's a tutorial on how to do that?
Yes. Help me with that. Is the Zona, is that a blog or a tutorial? We're going to have to look. We're thinking it might be, it's a blog. So if you go to our blog and go to the right-hand side, which is the index, and click on Zona, this will come up. How you cut this up and put it back together again. Yeah.
When you roll up the sleeve, the cuffs, does the wrong side show, or did you make a deep facing?
When I rolled up these, I just trimmed the seam allowance down. This particular seam on a sleeve, I sewed conventionally. It's sometimes difficult to do the overlapping seam down the tube of a sleeve, so I chose to sew this sleeve conventionally, and I trimmed the seam, and now you're seeing the wrong side of the fabric and the seam when I've rolled up the sleeves.
Do you line your wool pants?
Do I line my wool pants? It depends. If I'm going to line my wool pants, I would use chiffon or georgette, sometimes Bamberg rayon or China silk. You know, we do have a lot of rayon Bambergs on our website, and that is the classic lining. So it depends on the style, it depends on whether they're loose, they're tight, what the fabric is. But yes, I've lined many a pair of wool pants. By the way, I would not use this particular fabric for pants, if that's what you're thinking. I think this is more of a fabric for tops and jackets.
I think maybe she was referring to that fabric.
Oh, that wool, I would not line the wool, that particular wool crepe. That is so soft and so drapey and just the right feel for a pants that don't have to be lined. But you could. There's no reason why you couldn't.
Do an overlapping seam on the arm's eye?
Do I do an overlapping seam on the arm's eye? Yes. This, for instance, is an overlapping seam on the Tremont. Now you're going to overlap. You have to think about the direction of the overlaps. You're going to overlap in the direction that you would normally press a seam one way. So in this case, the body overlaps the sleeve.
Does the fusee web get in the way of trimming the back side of the seam?
Does the fusee web get in the way of trimming the back side of the seam? Occasionally it does, and it's easy to just pull that away, just give it a little bit of a pull and it'll come away. Not always, it kind of depends on where you put it. I put the fusee web right next to the chalk line, so generally it is not in the way. But if it is, I'll just pull the fabric back and then I can trim. You also can cut the fusee web in half and make it half the width, and it would probably be just fine. Fusee web comes from Japan. The prices, you know, from Japan are always a little bit higher. So if you want to save your fusee web, cut it in half and just use half. I think that would be plenty of fusee web on this fabric.
Is the blush fabric warm or cool that you have on?
What do you think? Are you talking about color tone or probably color tone?
Yes, I think so.
Is this a warm or cool? I think this is kind of warm. It has a little bit of a peachy overtone to it. Mm-hmm. So it's not pink, Warm.
Middle.
I'm going to choose warm.
Okay. Oh, and most people did say no buttons.
Ah, no buttons. Okay.
We had a couple button snap options, but
Yeah, if I had the right snaps, that was an option, but I just don't have the right snaps.
or it might be too heavy. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Are the scissors similar to the Cotton Theory scissors?
Are the scissors similar to the Cotton Theory scissors? I am not familiar with the Cotton Theory scissors. Can't help you with that. Sorry. Now I have something to look up on the internet.
What would be the best jacket pattern to highlight one large antique button?
What would be the best jacket pattern to feature one large antique button? I say the Tremont. I have done that many times. I've used that one signature, fabulous, to die for button on the Tremont many times.
Can you lengthen the era jacket?
Can you lengthen the era jacket? Yes. You can lengthen it quite a bit, actually. Yes.
What pants are you wearing?
I am wearing some old pants that I didn't make. Ancient pants. 40-year-old pants.
What do you suggest as the best method for making buttonholes?
What is the best idea for making buttonholes? I'm assuming in this fabric. That's a good question. We have a tutorial on buttonholes in knits,
Yes.
I believe. And it shows how to do this. Basically, you sew a rectangle. Some machines, including my Bernina, will sew a rectangle. It's like an outline. So all you need is a single line of stitching in a rectangle, and you slice down the middle of it. So you don't make a conventional buttonhole. It's a hole inside of a square.
Could you use this pant fabric for a pencil pant?
Oh, that's a good could I use the wool crepe with lichen for a pencil pant? I think so. That's got enough stretch that we're checking it one more time. What do you think? I think so. I think so.
Is the boucle washable?
Is the boucle washable? The answer is yes. It does change the character of it a little bit. It makes it a little fluffier, and it makes it a little more ragged, and that's a terrible word to use. A little more roughened up, brings out the texture a little bit more. But in fact, the Chateau coat this morning, I questioned whether it had been washed and decided it had not been. But we had a garment a while back in the red that had been washed, and you could tell that it had been washed. But yeah, it does wash.
Okay. Is the brown jacket also made of boucle? I didn't see that color fabric displayed.
This brown jacket is made in the boucle, but we don't have this color. I think the darkest and closest would be this moss green. We don't have this color anymore.
How much is the quincy lengthen?
I lengthened this quincy 6 inches.
Okay.
Now, you remember there's no hem on it, and I lengthened it from the bottom of the garment. So it's probably 6 3/4 inches longer because it's not hemmed.
On the flat iron, it mentions to trim the front. I assume do you do it on both sides?
Yes, you want to trim on the front,
Mm-hmm.
the center front. Yes, I would trim both sides, or not. I would probably leave it and not trim it.
You could try it on and see.
Yeah.
Trim it.
Yeah, you can trim it later.
Does the fabric shrink? Did you mention that?
Does the fabric shrink? Well, I've never washed this fabric. It does not shrink with steam. I don't know about washing it. These are not garments I would wash, personally. So I can't answer that about washing. I doubt if it shrinks much, but you know what? I shouldn't say because I haven't done it.
Test it.
Yeah.
There was something about your closet. I'm trying to get back to...
Something about my closet. Oh, my closet.
I'm trying to get back to that question. Sorry. You had a couple mentions about it.
Well, my closet at home,
large it is.
well, the closet is here at the sewing workshop. I mean, we have a basement with thousands of garments, and upstairs in our studio are another many hundreds, and my closet at home is a wreck. So there you go. Full of tennis clothes, mostly.
I can't find the original question about the closet, but I'm sure everybody would love a tour.
Well, you can always come to Topeka and check out our big closets here, the basement and the regular studio.
Okay, it just asks, what do you do with all your clothes? Build more closets?
Oh, no, they're here. My closet is at 301 South Kansas Avenue. That reminds me of my she shed discussion with my husband. I want a little she shed in my backyard. I really, really, really want one. I want to step out of my house, down my little path into my she shed. And so when I mentioned it to Craig a while back, he said, well, what about that 5,000 square foot she shed you have downtown? I went, oh, yeah, that. So this is my closet.
Okay, that's it.
All right, well, next week I have a special treat for you. Alex, my daughter, will be in town, and we're doing a mother-daughter thing, so you'll get to meet Alex for the first time on Facebook Live. So I hope to see you then. Thanks.